Well, it's 7 o'clock. We're gonna have everybody change to blue before we start. Is that what? Okay. Well, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call meeting of the King George Planning Commission to order.
This conference will now be recorded.
Is ready for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for allowing us to gather in this place, dear Lord, in a safe and respectful manner, dear Lord. We ask that you guide our hearts and minds as we go about the county's business, dear Lord, giving us clarity as we go about these decisions. Dear Lord, these and other blessings, we pray. Amen.
All right, we'll now open the floor for public comment. If anyone in the public wishes to address the commission, please come forward and state your name and address. Two items. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes to afford others the opportunity to speak. Any public comment?
Good evening. It's really limited 1006 Drive. I'm just here to, I'm here to support the draft ordinance for the microbrewery facilities as written because one, it's going to be good for the it's going to save me money for driving staff for the masses. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Steins, do we have anyone online? There's no more public comment. We'll close public comment. Yeah. So approval of minutes from the March 14th meeting, discussion, comments? If there is no discussion, we have a motion.
Move we accept the minutes from the March 14th meeting.
A motion second, all in favor?
Staying.
Mr. Hastings, are you available? Naval Support Activity, South Potomac Community Development Liaison Officer.
Yes, I'm here. No comments tonight. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Plans to review public hearing. Yeah, there are none.
Mr. Chairman. Sorry, when we get to the public hearing on breweries and so forth, I have to read a disclosure statement into the record.
All right, I'll kick this off and then. So for public hearing, case number 2302Z01, amendment to the King George County zoning ordinance to allow microbreweries, cideries, distilleries, or wineries in the retail commercial district C1, general trade district C2, amendment to sections 1.9 and 2.9.2. Open floor for public comment. Not you, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I have to read a short disclosure statement. Sorry. Although I believe my prior disclosure of a prospective business opportunity and the existence of 3 or more similarly situated members of a group would allow me to participate in tonight's discussion of microbreweries, cideries, distilleries, and wineries, I am mindful of the potential appearance of impropriety and my obligations as a planning commissioner set forth in the bylaws. Therefore, while I reserve the right to make public comment in my citizen capacity during the public hearing in the same manner as any other citizen, I voluntarily abstain from further discussions and voting on the matter of case number 23-02-Z01. County Attorney's Office has confirmed that my abstention is consistent with the objectives of the Conflicts of Interests Act. The clerk shall include this written statement in the record.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, department heads, and I want to emphasize that this is the same case that was brought before you at your last meeting, where you voted unanimously to hold. Case number 2302-Z01, an amendment to the King George County zoning ordinance to allow microbreweries, cideries, distilleries, or wineries in the Retail Commercial District C1 and General Trade District C2. These are amendments to Section 1.9 definition of terms, Section 2.9.2 C1 Retail Commercial Use. Back on January 17th, the King George County Board of Supervisors directed staff to amend the ordinance to include the use of micro wineries in the commercial districts. Although microbreweries are already permitted in our current ordinance, it is beneficial to combine the use and definition to include micro cideries, micro distilleries, and micro breweries. The current zoning ordinance allows for these establishments in the agricultural zoning districts under the agricultural farming use, where the products used for the manufacture of alcoholic beverages like beer, cider, liquor, or wine are grown on site. However, the ordinance does not permit these establishments where the products used for the manufacture of alcoholic beverages are not grown on site in any zoning district. The first proposed amendment will be to Section 1.9, definition of terms. Microbrewery, cidery, distillery, or winery. A small-scale establishment primarily engaged in the production of alcoholic beverages, including beer, wine, cider, or other spirits on site for wholesale or retail sale. Beer production capacity shall not exceed 15,000 barrels per year. Production of distilled spirits, wine, or alcoholic cider shall not exceed 5,000 barrels per year. Microbrewery, cidery, distillery, or winery may include a restaurant or public tasting room as an accessory use. Establishments must be licensed by the Virginia Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control and shall operate in accordance with any requirements by the Code of Virginia or other applicable laws. You see that this will replace the microbrewery definition and strike through that. The second proposed amendment will be to Section 2.9.2, retail commercial uses permitted by right. This will include the use of microbrewery, cidery, distillery, or winery as use permitted by right in the retail commercial C1 zoning district. Again, you can see that this just crossed out microbreweries. This will be located to the same use that's used 25K. Additionally, permitting microbreweries, cideries, distilleries, or wineries in the retail commercial district C1 will automatically permit the use in the general trade district C2. With that, we can end on the recommendation from staff to the King George County Planning Commission for case number 2302-Z01, amendment to the King George County zoning ordinance to allow microbreweries, cideries, distilleries, or wineries in the retail commercial district C1 and general trade district C2 to the King George County Board of Supervisors recommendation. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Last time there was consensus that they felt like we didn't have enough information, so we tried to provide that out to you. Ms. Washington is also here. She's going to grab statements.
Questions?
Thank you.
Now open the floor for public comment. Come to the podium, please provide your name, address, and please limit your comment to 3 minutes. Mr. Dines, anybody online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion? Oh, closed public comment? Discussion?
So I just want to say I missed last month's meeting, so I did not hear the discussion then. But, you know, for my benefit, I guess I'm a little confused. I thought under agritourism, we were allowing wineries in agricultural areas. And I understood that not all of the product used to produce wine, grapes, necessarily had to be grown on site, that they could be bought from other areas. But I thought it was limited to agriculture areas. I just get the feeling that by putting it in the commercial district, one, a lot of our commercial districts are not very large and they tend to border upon residential areas. So I have some concern there. And I would want to take a long, hard look at the hours and any outdoor space that was proposed to be used. But it just seems to me like we're just using the agritourism label to basically create bars. So I guess I'm looking for the discussion to help me understand where I'm not seeing it properly.
The only thing we're changing is putting in the words micro cideries.
By putting it in C1 and 2 areas, that's my concern. Putting it in agricultural, having an outdoor venue as part of it, none of that disturbs me a great deal. But I just have a concern that it'll wind up being a nuisance for any residents living around it, particularly if it's an outdoor area associated with it, which I originally thought it was.
It's already by right in C1, is that correct?
Microbreweries are, yes, sir.
Microbreweries are already by right in C1. Open it up to C2.
15,000 barrels is a microbrewery. I don't know whether that's reasonable or unreasonable. So again, I'd like to hear some comments on that from some.
Did you read the Spotsy? The way Spotsy had it written, they had it divided between farm microbreweries and more commercial breweries.
I did not see that, no.
I would recommend the model for ours if anybody else has an opinion on that, on the Spotsy model.
I know for the outside portion of it, or noise generation, that was the potential for future discussion, but that the noise ordinance was probably sufficient. Current ordinance was probably sufficient.
Okay.
I might be confused. Reading the Spotsy one, I don't really see the difference in what we're talking about. They still separate a micro winery like a micro brewery, which is the only thing we're really talking about here, not a farm or a full-fledged winery. Am I correct? We're not talking about an actual winery, or we'll look up at the micro.
Yes, you're correct. The difference between this and the agricultural ones is that you don't necessarily have to have the products grown on site. So one of the attachments where the manufacturer licenses, there's 3 different groups of licenses. 2 of them are only in the agricultural zoning districts where you have to grow a certain percentage on site. The first one, I forget the name right now, but that's when you do not have to grow the stuff on site. The idea is it would be sourced into like a restaurant style where it's predominantly engaging in the manufacture of just that alcoholic beverage.
If I understand it correctly, one of the changes aside from C2 is just allowing micro wineries and cideries, which we already allow microbreweries, right?
That's correct. We're essentially adding to the microbrewery definition.
So I had the same question and concern, but I believe we already, it's a by right use for a bar, a saloon, a restaurant in C1 and C2 now.
That's correct. A bar would fall under a restaurant use, which is permitted by right in C1 and C2.
C2. The only difference is they have to manufacture their products on site. Brewery, big glass, stainless steel. So I don't see an increased risk of hooliganism beyond which we've already accepted by the allowance of a bar, restaurant.
Well, does a microbrewery decouple the requirement for food service, unlike a bar?
Well, I think that's governed by ABC directives.
It would be a different license requirement, yes.
So just clarity on the law then. I mean, what is the law in Virginia with the ABC for bars? I mean, yes, for some reason I'd always thought that there was a requirement that a certain percentage sales had to be from food. Is that not true?
So that would be for a retail license. If you're trying to sell food or, other beverages, you have to get a retail license. A manufacturer license is just so you can produce the alcoholic beverage.
But along with that comes the tasting room. So, allowed to taste the beer they produce.
So a manufacturer license will allow them to have a tasting room included. That's inclusive of the manufacturer license, depending on which one you get. And the ABC law allows people to sell beverages that they do not produce on site.
But that would have to be accessory to the principal use, which would be the microbrewery winery use.
Just sounds like
Yes, that would get into having a retail license to sell other beverages.
I mean, if that's where we want to go, I'm fine. And if we stick to the current noise ordinance, then, that probably addresses most of my concerns there. But still, sounds like we're approving bars. Yes, and I guess we can by law. So, okay.
I support the change in definition to include micro cideries, micro wineries. I have no problem with that, but I don't think we need to extend it to C2 as a by right use. We don't even have it any applications as far as I know in C1 yet. And if it's going to be just a bar, I'd like to get some track record under our feet before we extend it any further to see how it actually functions in practice.
So would you be in favor of taking C2 out and leaving it? Well, all of it's, C1's not all by right, right?
So to clarify, C1 would be the most restrictive, C2 would be the lesser restrictive, and we currently do have a microbrewery in the C2 zoning district, Highmark, just up the street next to Benny's.
More discussion?
Yeah, well, my biggest headache, previous meeting was making adjustments to the noise. ordinance. Mr. Kendrick has, touched on that, and I'm with him in agreement with him in that as long as we're not making any special arrangements on special changes, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think the current noise ordinance probably covers all the bases. So,
I mean, it sounds like we're already allowing them in C2. We have one, right? So I guess maybe I'm worried. I'm trying to close the barn door after the cow has already left. So that's my fault for not appreciating it. But again, the outdoor areas, if we follow the noise ordinance, I don't see that any worse than somebody just deciding to set up a speaker and an amplifier in their backyard and having a private party. I just wanted to say that.
I have one question. The Heritage Spotsy and Westmoreland both have barrel allowances of 20,000 for cider and wine, and ours is 5. There a rationale behind that?
Staff was acting off of a recommendation for the 5,000.
Sorry, please explain. Oh.
We were acting off a recommendation from Commissioner Fox that 5,000 barrels would be adequate.
Is that commercially viable? You would know, I wouldn't mind it.
I think it is a larger capacity than that of our neighbors. Most of them limited by gallons, and we do barrels. Not that it really helps, but according to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Act, a barrel means any container or vessel having capacity of more than 43 ounces. There's not a whole lot of restriction.
Really?
Yes. But currently in our ordinance, we do permit microbreweries for 15,000 barrels. That has stayed the same.
But we haven't defined a King George barrel.
No, sir.
I would recommend we do, and that we choose the right number. Heather, you're smiling.
We would need consensus from the commission.
From the county commission.
From your colleague.
discussion on defining a King George barrel.
Not interested. I'm not well versed in barrel sizes. Take that one offline, or
Well, if we do, then the motion to move this
okay.
go another month, we could
I mean,
move it.
that's what most are, right? 55 gallons.
Right, it's a drum.
Consulting the Oracle Google.
So a standard barrel is 55 gallons. That's standard. Industrial.
We're consulting Google. Please bear with us.
measurement has been used since the 1800s. Volume is a standard wooden barrel used for hauling many types of things.
All right, so Google says a barrel is 42 gallons.
The drum is 55.
Wrong. So we're not talking drums, we're talking barrels. So is the King George definition of barrel 42 gallons? Yeah, I think if we try to put it in a neat little box, we're gonna end up having to define barrel in oil, in water, in beer, in cider. I don't know if we want to have that level of granular detail.
Standard. 42 gallons. Okay.
So 15,000 42-gallon barrels, 630,000 gallons. 15,000 55-gallon drums is 825,000. I'm up in numbers where I don't really care. It's a lot of it's a lot of product. And,
Yeah.
And again, you know, other than the one new microbrewery that has gone in, it's fine. It was according to our codes. You know, we seem to be opening up the opportunity to do a number of these. And like I said, my base concern is that it seems to be just an interesting way to get around just having a bar. And you know, for as long as I've been in Virginia, I don't remember seeing too many bars. You sell alcohol when you go to the restaurant. I'm perfectly fine with that. But particularly when you can do a microbrewery and sell somebody else's product as well as your own, it's basically a bar. You know, if that's what we want to do, I'm good. That's the way I view it. And if I'm wrong, then I hope somebody will set me straight. And I'm okay if that's what we want to do. I don't have any problem with that, particularly if we adhere to the noise ordinance.
If I can interrupt real quick, there are some localities that do prohibit, breweries, wineries from selling products that they do not themselves produce. That is a potential option you can put in your own zoning law.
So first, do we want to adopt 42 gallons as the definition of barrel?
And if I may interject on that, if you don't mind, Chairman Moss, is if you do decide to make it, just make that your maximum. Just keep in mind not every spirit is in the same size barrel. So you would want to limit it by a maximum size. Mr. Fox?
We're cutting.
Mr. Fox.
Sorry.
Hairs. This may be.
There is a there are state definitions of barrel sizes for spirits. They're federal. They're not the same either. But we should either use the federal or if King George has a definition of barrel.
So
I don't believe we do.
again, I'm not hung up on the barrels or the gallons. It doesn't make any difference to me. We're opening up the door that allows bars. I don't care how much they make or don't make. So I don't want to get into a discussion about gallons or barrels. Well, I mean, we've stated barrels are maximum. I'm perfectly fine with what we got there as a. Yeah, but does it make a lot of difference between 825,000 gallons and 630,000 gallons? I mean, it's not 2 million gallons. It's not like a commercial brewery.
Yeah, that's the point was brought up, so we want to have the discussion on it. And if it's something that we want to jump into, we'll define what a what a barrel is. If we don't want to jump into that, we can move past it and just vote on what's here.
Right, so keep in mind, the only thing that you can vote on tonight is exactly what's in your packet. Any changes to that, we would have to table or come back to in a different manner. So you can vote on this tonight and direct staff to come back and define a barrel, or we can do that in our overhaul. But that does give you opportunity to close the chapter on what's in front of you tonight.
Well, go right to it. Do I have a motion to accept as written?
The motion would be to forward to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation, sir.
Have a motion.
No.
Or discussion?
Just one piece of clarification, Ms. Hall. So this would require we'd have to go back and do another public hearing on it if we modify it again?
If you modify it, you can not add to the description, you can take away from.
Right.
But if you add to it, we have to go back and have another public hearing. So your action is either to forward with a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, approve or deny, or table with direction.
So I was just going for B line. Is there a motion? If not, table. We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. All in favor?
Wait, hold them up, please. Thank you.
Nays? Opposed? Opposition?
Abstain.
Mr. Parker, how do you vote?
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
So we have 5 ayes, 4 nays, 1 abstain, so the ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
I feel like that should have been 2 motions, one for changing the definition and one for extending commercial use.
If I understood that, they said, we're going over the ordinance process anyway, and there'll be the opportunity to include any changes we may wish to make at that time in the revised ordinance. That will be subject to public hearing as well. So that opportunity will be, if I understand.
That's correct. Yes.
Ready. Next up will be capital improvements.
So first we will hear opening remarks from the County Administrator, Chris Miller, on the status of King George County, and then we'll introduce each director with the CIP request upon the podium to discuss their project. We will go in order of least request to most request this year. Mr. Miller.
Planning Commission members, sorry I didn't distribute the blue shirt memo, but I did see I appreciate the heads up. I'll blame that on Ms. Hall, but we're very happy to be here. This is the annual process of bringing before you the proposed capital improvements plan for the next 5 years. I will briefly, I guess, point out some things to you. Obviously, this year you're considering an FY 23-24, you're considering about 46 million, just shy of that. 45,984,821 over a 5-year period. We are projecting a capital improvements plan of $80,354,821. I will tell you that in 2026-27, that is an anomaly. There obviously will be more projects that we are going to be proposing in that fiscal year, and in also in 25-26, which is very shortly on us. But there are a number of projects that have been approved in previous years that are slated for further fiscal years, and I think it's very important to note that we have been affected, obviously, as an organization by some of that emergence from the pandemic and the slowdowns and the focus that we're having in terms of having have long leads on projects. An example would be the courthouse. That was a project that we had to come back and with gap financing. The Board of Supervisors had to approve in their budget last year to do gap financing. The public radio system that Sheriff Giles and Chief Basham have been heading up has also involved that. And so we were able to keep those projects moving, and I think if you had the opportunity to come down to the down by the new courthouse, you'll see that substantial progress is being made. Branch Builds is our contractor. They're doing an outstanding job. That was a construction manager at risk project, which is the first time the county's ever done something like that, where you go in and negotiate the price for you select a contractor and then you negotiate the price. They commit to it, and it's a little different than the regular constant change order process. They're building those things in, and so that was one of our challenges. But that project is going very well. Obviously, you're going to see a number of things tonight, and you're going to hear a number of really important projects. These large projects that are, obviously significant impacts to us. We have ways, and we are contemplating ways to finance those projects. These are projects that will likely involve possible long-term financing. For instance, the preschool that you'll hear about tonight, the fire station number 2. These are large projects that could take up an entire capital budget. So we work constantly to try to find some other examples. So let me tell you a little bit about kind of the financial scenario for us. Obviously, those are things that Ms. Hahn, our finance director, and myself work with the Board of Supervisors on once you all have prioritized your list. But there's about $2 million built into the operating budget that we will utilize. There still remains about $900,000 in the ARPA money, which was obviously the pandemic-related funding. We also received an additional $100,000 from what we call LACTF, which is another pandemic-related supply of money that we're able to utilize. And then we carry over about $2 million funds for the current year. We are hoping that on this coming agenda on the Board of Supervisors for the 18th, that we'll be securing a parcel for the next fire station number 2, which is the Baldwin Fire Station, which, as you can see, there's we're looking at about a $14 million project. So we can secure the property. That's certainly the first step, and then we'll begin the process of building it. That will involve, obviously, some big long-term financing. Just wanted to give you a little bit of overview. County's growing, county's changing, county's updating. The county is going through a lot of transition, if you will, and in a very good way. I think you have a committed. Oh, okay. So you have a very committed board of supervisors who needs that direction and that recommendation that you all provide in terms of the capital improvements. And I can tell you that the Service Authority is another one that has significant capital improvements as we're trying to upgrade the water and the sewer capacity in the community and to the public. And so with that, I guess we have a list of folks, and our recommendation is that obviously that you approve this list, but give us some guidance and your priorities, and then we get to work on getting the money for it. So, and we're here to answer any questions. And I know, as I said, you have a list in front of you, and so I don't know if they're going to go in the order that we recommend, but it's up to them. So we're here for you tonight. Thank you.
So as a reminder, each planning commission member will submit their rankings according to the number system that's been provided to you. That will be due by next Friday, close of business. And we will hear from each director, starting with Sheriff Drowse.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. As you all know, King George County is bordered to the north by the Potomac River and the south by the Rappahannock River. The law enforcement jurisdiction for the Potomac River is Charles County, Maryland. Law enforcement jurisdiction for the Rappahannock is King George County, me. In October of 2021, the Port Authority Security through FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security awarded King George Sheriff's Office a grant. The thought behind them awarding us the grant is to better assist in needing protecting the Potomac and the Rappahannock River in case of a terrorist attack, whether it be foreign or domestic. The boat would also be useful in assisting bordering jurisdictions if needed. The grant that was awarded is $280,310.63. King George County would be responsible for 38% of that cost for the boat. The breakdown is King George County is responsible for $94,474.95. The grant will fund $185,835.68. I'm requesting $280,311 in FYI 2024 to purchase a 23-foot center console patrol boat, with the grant reimbursing the county the $94,474.95. Now, keeping in mind that this grant will expire in FYI 2025. Meaning that even though if we are approved to go forward with the purchase, it would take approximately 1 year to complete this boat. Payment on the boat wouldn't be made until we take possession of the boat. If approved for FYI 25 instead of FYI 24, it may be too late, and the grant money would go back into the federal government. So at this time, I can answer any questions if you have any in reference to this grant.
The $250,000, is that still a boat?
It's still a boat?
$250,000?
That's what they're calling it.
Yeah, can you describe it?
Sure. It's a 23-foot center console with some bunch of stuff here and there, gun locks, a bunch of miscellaneous items to make it a law enforcement boat. The description that they're putting here in their invoice or their quote is very navigable, no pun intended on the road. It's got a canvas enclosure with a T-top, sonar, dive ladders, platforms, so on and so forth. I mean, it's essentially
So that's just for the boat and the equipping the boat. It doesn't have anything to do with manning the boat?
Correct.
No.
Correct. Anything? Correct. It's just to get the boat and get it equipped to be put in.
So, Sheriff, how will that increase your, I guess, your expenses? as far as like he said, manning the boat, fueling the boat, so on and so forth?
It would be fuel and then of course training, which I mean fuel would be reoccurring, but training would be one time.
Is it potentially feasible? I know this is out of the blue question, but to get 2 boats for that? Put one on the Rappahannock and one on the Potomac?
Probably not, only because of the style of the boat that you need for law enforcement is not your standard. I mean, it's got to be a deep well, be able to maintain them. If you do make an arrest on the river, you don't want them falling over like it's a John boat. You know, there's a lot of specifics that are needed to do that. And plus, with the grant being $280,000, you know, that's what they funded us for, that grant, for 1 boat, not for 2.
And does it, I mean, I don't mean anything humorous by this, but the Potomac, I think, is technically Maryland, right?
Yep.
Does that impact this at all in any way, or your ability to?
I would have to go
through, so to speak.
Meaning that it's the jurisdiction of Maryland. How would it impact me? Is that your question?
Correct. I mean, given that the Potomac is technically.
Sure. I would have to enter into an MOU with Charles County Sheriff's Office and probably DNR, along with training as far as Maryland laws, so on and so forth. I mean, it's just a hoop you have to jump through, but I could enter into an MOU with Charles County to be able to enforce any type of laws on them.
Do you foresee any, need to have a headcount increase for?
Not at this time, but it depends on what we find on the Potomac if we're out there enforcing.
Thank you.
So just for reference, I just consulted Google again. A fully equipped 23-foot Boston whaler loaded is 193,000. That's a civilian. So I think 280, especially if we get 94,000 in refund, is not terribly bad when you're talking about, a law enforcement equipped boat, which I imagine is probably highly ruggedized. And so just my thoughts for a little bit of perspective on it.
Thank you. Appreciate you looking that up.
100. It was like 180. 94 is what the
94 is what the county's responsible for.
Oh, sorry, that's even better. Nice. You get a trailer.
Comes with the trailer. That includes the trailer. Any other questions?
All right. Just out of curiosity, strictly out of curiosity, what size engines? Does it say what size engines are on the back of it?
Like I said, no pun intended, navigating this quote is, sure, let me see if I can find it, if you just bear with me for a second.
Do it to me.
Got dual Mercury 200 horsepower, 4-stroke outboard engine.
Thank you. Thank you.
Plan on running? You plan on running?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your consideration.
Next up, we have Ms. Judy Hart, Commissioner of Revenue.
Good evening, board. We've come to you this evening to request an increase in a program for our vision camera program that allows us to be much more efficient and productive in our work in the office. The county is growing tremendously, and we can tell by the workload that we have in our office. We have much more vehicles coming into the county to assess the value. More county decals are going out. Every day we're giving out 10, 15 county decals that allows folks to go to the landfill. More business licenses are being issued. That means more business tangible property to be assessed. more meals tax and lodging tax coming in each month from the restaurants, more real estate transfers. The girls are bombarded with the real estate transfers. And of course, all of that comes to more land use, folks getting in the county, purchasing the larger parcels, and they're needing land use, so there's more of that to do. And I'm going to turn it over to my Chief Deputy, Regina Puckett, and she's going to give you a little outlook on the program that we're requesting.
Good evening. So I just jotted down some notes so I wouldn't forget anything. It's inevitable because Vision purchased Stonewall Technologies, which is who we had the CAMA program through. So they are getting ready to phase that out, and it will be considered an upgrade instead of a purchase. So they informed us it would be pretty much like a 50% discount right now if we purchased it. The initial fee seems high, they said, but they are willing to stretch it out over several budget cycles, they told us. The initial fee is $75,000. There are benefits from this. We get to keep in contact with the same folks that we're already dealing with. There's no help desk. You pick up the phone, you're actually able to talk to a person that can help you right away. There's annual user groups to address concerns and issues and questions, monthly training seminars. GIS will link right to it. There is a small fee for the taxpayer portal, what they call it, which is like a VAMinet, because I know there was issues with trying to get field sheets out with property cards to each individual along with their tax bill, which is going to be a high cost due to postage. But this way, it's an annual fee, but the folks will be able to look right on and get their details immediately just by looking right online themselves. Vision is configurable. It will work with CAMA to transition us, but it's mostly a Windows product. So whereas my land use, I have to, old school now, touching on all the Word documents. It's 1,300, over 1,300 of them, and during the reassessment, I have to update each one of them myself individually. It's not a mass change, but with them, you enter it into their system, and you're able to print out your applications right from there. It's right now in the CAMA system in Bright, I enter the information, and then I have to go to my Word document and touch on it several different places. So this would help me with that. For our real estate department, currently the system that we're using is you enter the sketches, north, this amount of feet, east, this amount, south, this amount. Whereas with their system, you take your mouse and you draw it exactly how it should be. And it's a lot faster all the way around. I will entertain any questions.
So is there a maintenance element included in this fee, or if there's it sounded like it's cloud hosted and we just get a portal to it and get an account?
There is an annual fee. For the year.
So I could be off base. There's probably no maintenance on our end. Looking for an IT expert.
No, Mr. Chairman, there isn't. They invited me to the presentation that they did. It's all through the cloud. Many of the jurisdictions in the state have really problems. There's a couple other ones, but there aren't as many people going to those. trusted. The Stonewall technology people have been doing for so many years. The vision basically fought them out by the competition. It's a good product. I've seen their screen, right? I know you all have heard of Brandon, how we're trying to get that taken care of. And, but the way they do things is so done by the staff. And we have to help them a lot. We got all the support for them. It's 4, 5 hours getting a new camera person. It's going to be camera set up. It's crazy. But this one's going to be a whole lot easier.
All hosted in the cloud, so all you do is access.
Yeah.
And Ms. Hart, sounds like with the ease of use of this compared to what you currently have, could that help potentially stave off any additional staffing that you may need moving forward?
Yes, I believe it. Yes, it will. The time that they will save in just entering, say, perhaps their land use, just entering the real estate tax rate and the 2 or 3 other things that would change during the year. You just enter it and it updates everything immediately. She won't have to touch each 1,335 count. It's just amazing, and just print it right out, especially for the girls doing the transfers. Compared to the way they're doing it now, it's just so backward. It's just so ancient. This would be awesome for us, yes, and it would help to not have that need for another person. Yes, it will.
Will it migrate on the current? Will migrate on everything that's in there now?
Yes. Yes.
It basically houses all the land use records, or all the land records. But
Personal, everything, all the records will be in it. Yes. Thing we left out, Chris, we set in on the demonstration.
It's all fun.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Nutra, Director of Solid Waste and Recycling.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Beginning in fiscal year 22, the Department of Solid Waste and Recycling received additional maintenance responsibilities as a result of the 17th Amendment to the host agreement. One of these responsibilities is to maintain the infrastructure of the county's convenience centers. The concrete pad of the metal disposal area at the CLC Convenience Center is deteriorated to the point that rebar is showing and must be periodically removed to prevent puncture to patrons' tires and our equipment's tires. Portions of the surrounding wall have also broken off, and one section is cracked and unstable. This section here of the pad, you notice the crisscross pattern there and the potholes. That's all reinforcement bar that's been basically uncovered over the years as the concrete has been pushed off. As we've used our backhoe to load metal, it's removed the top cover and dug down to the first level of rebar. And we have to take grinders and sawzalls and just basically cut these pieces out so they don't puncture the $1,000 backhoe tire or get into our patrons' tires. It's another head-on view right there. You can see really in that center section, that top level of rebar there. And on the back wall, you can see some of those chunks that have been taken out. The area of the pad most in need of repair is approximately 70 feet by 25 feet. The concrete depth is estimated at 1 foot with an estimated 18-inch turn down. So at the very end, they've kind of keyed it in with an additional half-foot depth of concrete. The amount of demo material is estimated at 70 yards. Existing subgrade will have to be regraded and compacted. After compaction, 1/2 inch rebar, number 4 will be installed, 16 inches on center, and we'll have 2 layers, top and bottom. 4,000 PSI concrete will then be poured to a 1 foot thickness. Control joints installed to code and a heavy brum finish applied. Estimated cure time is 28 days. The surrounding walls are 8 inches thick. Damaged wall sections will be saw cut down approximately 8 inches, repinned, formed, and poured. There are about 8 sections of wall that require repair, and 1 6 foot by 3 foot corner that's just going to be removed. It's going to be easier just to saw cut that at a 45-degree angle in the broken material. It's another head-on shot of that same chip. Looking down the wall, you can see rebar sticking up, parts of it are knocked down. I don't know if you can see it very clearly at the end of that wall. You can notice it's almost on a 45-degree angle right now. You've got a crack running down it. Now it's just going to be saw cut down, make it smooth, and have that part removed, and that other chip to be formed and poured. The contractor will demo and place the old concrete in an on-site dumpster. Will then haul it and dump it. The original project cost was based on a T&M quote from the site work vendor who works for Waste Management on the Hill, Ryan Central. They're giving it to us for time and materials due to their longstanding relationship with Waste Management. Now, we did obtain additional estimates that were kind of slow in coming in March of 2023. Those projected costs were higher than the $76,000 that we had gotten from Ryan. They both came in, oddly enough, right at about $125,000. But obviously Ryan would be asked to put in a bid for the. You gentlemen have any questions?
Yeah, so 125,000 on there, but what's being presented here is 76.
Yeah, so that was the T&M quote that we got from Ryan Central. So they're the on-site contractor, so there's certainly an economy there. Their equipment is on site. They're there and they're doing it, as they've said, for time and materials. Now, just for reference, we've got 2 other contractors to look at it, and their estimates both came in at 125,000. We're hoping that it's closer to the Ryan end, but that's what we're asking for, and that's what they presented. It is a few months in the past, and concrete prices are going up. Prices over there are going up.
Option discussed with the board on top of that, or?
Well, so right now you're talking about a 1 foot thickness, so you would have to. I guess you could do a 1 foot on top of it, but then what do you do with the grade of everything approaching that? It's tough for us to make up that grade.
Like 6 inches on top and be done.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't go any less than a foot at 4,000 PSI, just because of the nature of what we're dealing with. So we've got full heavy duty 30-yard containers that are parked on it and a roll-off truck. So when that comes on it's not something you really want to skimp on. You really need to saw cut it, you need to excavate it, you need to pour it in. And the only problem too with that is we're only going for a 70-foot by 25-foot section. So the back part is in pretty decent shape. It's really the front half that needs to be cut and removed. So pouring on top's not, unless you wanted to do the whole thing, it's probably not.
Question, that front area is where you get most of your traffic and contact, correct?
Yes, sir.
It needs to be, well, out of lack of experience, be reinforced better than the back, I would imagine.
Well, so most of the scraping wear is certainly on the front because of our backhoes are picking things up and they're pushing it back and then really on the wall. But when they're unloading when that roll-off truck comes in, you've got all the weight right there on that front section for sure. That's certainly something you don't want to cut a corner on.
Discussion?
Match up.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Next up, we have Michael Muncy, Director of General Property.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the rest of the committee. First thing I have two things I'm bringing forward to y'all. It's the first one is the Ralph Bunch roof replacement. As you might know, the actual school has been replaced, but they didn't do the shop. So that roof we've been trying to repair and maintain, but it's beyond that at this point. It's lived its life. So I've got a proposal, like I said, to do $150,000 to replace that roof. Right now, we have some structural damage. That's included in part of that. The original bid I've gotten is like right around 125, but by the time this gets approved, I'm afraid with the cost of petroleum and the roof and everything, it's going to be close to that. And like I said, and the structural damage. I don't know what the future use of the building is going to be. I know right now we have Parks and Rec is using, and so is General Properties. I have 3 snow plows stored in there, and they store their water wheels in there. So, like I said, the rafters are starting to become decayed, so they're going to have to be, replaced in those certain spots. Any questions?
Who does Ralph Bunch School belong to? Who owns it?
The county. Yes, sir.
Supervisor.
Yep.
Does that 150,000 include what you mentioned, repair of the raft?
Yes, yes.
You guys were relocating out of there, I thought, right?
We did back when I guess they thought this was going to be turned over as a some other type of project. So we moved out of there. I actually had the oil tanks and all abated. The boiler has been decommissioned. Like I guess it was going to be turned over as some type of lease deal, but yeah. Anything else? Okay. The second thing I'm bringing to you is we've already been approved for the General Properties building down at the by the new courthouse across from the dog pound. What we did not incur was the price for engineering, and that's what I'm asking. The 125,000. I've talked with the engineering department and feel that's adequate as far as doing a site survey. Actually, we've already been in contact with them, and plans and design of the building and the site plan.
So, I don't know about anybody else, but when we had this conversation last year, I didn't think about it till after the fact, but if we're looking for a new firehouse for the Dahlgren area, is there potential reuse for the old firehouse?
It could be, but for us, it's way undersized.
Okay.
Way undersized.
Now, did y'all move out of the facility over on 605, like going to the landfill?
No, we haven't. We're still leasing that.
Was that their prospect or move from there closer at one point?
Well, that's what we're
That's the whole thing to go to the gotcha.
exactly. So we'll be more centrally located.
Okay.
But right now we're almost on the Stafford line.
Yeah.
So, and we do several trips, back and forth a day because there again we have nowhere to store any of our supplies other than at the shop. And like I said, some are stored in some of the other localities, but not the main supplies.
The building will be big enough for everything.
That's what we're hoping, yes, sir. And I'm meeting with Wiley Wilson on Thursday, and we're going to go over the size and the needs, which I've already propose to them what we need, but we're going to actually be on site.
So let me just make sure I understand correctly. The 125 is for your new facility near the new courthouse.
Yes, it's for the engineering part of it.
Okay. Will that facility eventually meet the need that you're wanting in the shop at Ralph Bunch? Or is Ralph?
No, Ralph Bunches. That's just, if you want to use that building in the future, that 150,000 is to save that building. Otherwise,
is General Services going to be using that facility?
whoever, it's, if you don't put a new roof on it, the rafters are going to continue to decay, and then you're going to have to end up demolishing the building or put a new roof on it structurally.
I guess I'm back asking, what is the long-term use of Ralph Bunch?
I'm just looking at,
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Kendrick, so the plan is so the county does own the facility. The plan is to have some kind of an agreement with several different players. One is Visualize and Rise, which is a nonprofit. If you are a long-term King George resident, there was a football player that played at the high school and then went to Towson State and then New Orleans Saints, and Mr. Jermon Bushwad, and he's working with the county to establish a use agreement that would have multiple activities in there. And then I think the other aspect of it is to have the Alumni Association be very active. And then there's also other community type services that the county is looking at possible to use that facility. So obviously getting this the garage, the shop roof repaired is significant because it adds that much more space. We were very fortunate we got the grant for the main building's roof, and they got that completed. It just finished. I think we signed off on that in March. So that is very helpful. And the next step is to begin looking at other improvements to that main part of the building, like addressing the mold remediation issues, some of the other structural issues. So that's the thing that the board is committed to and is working for.
Are any of these organizations, like the Alumni Association, collecting funds for any of this, or is it all on the county?
I don't know that they're collecting the funds over and above what their programs would be kind of limited to.
Facilities are entirely the county's responsibility.
I think that that's how we've approached it, but that doesn't mean that that there isn't a participation from other groups. We know also that there is our staff is working actively to get grants. There's a lot of different categories that you can apply for with old school buildings, especially school buildings that were designated for African Americans. And there are a number of through the Park Service that we're pursuing. So Mr. Miner from the Economic Development and Tourism Office is working pretty diligently on that. There is a committee, if you will, of volunteers that are working on that. Ms. Kupka and Ms. Bender from the Board of Supervisors are both on that committee, and so they're kind of helping steer that group. But yeah, I think that the plan would be that the large scale items are going to somehow be either grant funded or provided over time by the county.
Just a prosaic question. I assume the architectural profile will preserve the original look and character of the historical method.
For the Ralph Bunch building?
The Ralph Bunch shop building.
Correct.
But no change.
Absolutely.
Discussion? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
It's in your board report, sir. Do you want me to have someone print them off for you? Before? Next up, we have Bryce Young Engineering.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I have two projects on the CIP. We have the old courthouse renovation and repurposing. Once the current courthouse that we're using is vacated by the courts, we are going to repurpose it for use for administrative and extension of this facility. That is $550,000. My second project, or any questions on that, please?
So, to me, that assumes that the new courthouse is going to be ready this fiscal year. So this slot in the budget might be premature.
This is for the engineering and
just the engineering.
Correct.
$500,000 for the engineering.
Correct. It's not only just engineering how we're going to redesign the space. It also has to do with the correcting some of the structural issues. And sorry.
Okay.
The construction of the new courthouse is currently on the way, scheduled to be completed by May of 2024. The county administration building has no additional available office space. Several departments have been relocated to rental office space. The county is currently in the process of performing an assessment of the existing courthouse to include needs assessment of the departments that may relocate from the old courthouse upon completion of the renovation. The purpose of this request is to provide funding for preparation of construction, bid documents, and renovation of the old courthouse.
Because, so we wouldn't have to renovate this place. I mean, after the fire next door is virtually a hazard. And now we're talking about building a new courthouse and repurposing this one because the new courthouse isn't big enough for the staff. Is that what I'm hearing?
Staff is on their first into the scene. So the idea was that you have an opportunity. Let's look at ways to repurpose that. That's next step, I think, is what Mr. Young is talking about, is that we would go ahead and present it to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors interpret the actual plan for what to do with that building. Then we go in and we start that process. We know that it's not something that's going to be done here. This is the kind of the plan. I believe that's correct. Is that right, Mr. Young?
Yes, sir.
Right now, Mosley Architects is doing kind of a spatial analysis for that building. We combined that building with the building of the old middle school. I think the recommendation on the old middle school is that it's facility will have facility, and that perhaps the best thing to do is to tear it down, look at some future options for the school board. So, Dr. Boyd. Yes, that's what the plan is this money would be for the designation of.
So, right. Is part of the scope of work here under this engineering to determine what additional costs would then be necessary to effect their recommendations? I mean, is this just part one? Is it going to be a part two of when they get through with this work? Yeah, we recommend you put another X amount of money into.
Correct.
I think that's a fair way of looking. 550 is going to be developing a plan, developing a design. The next step is securing the money for that, and then the next step is to be able to
Because we don't see anything in the out years here, but okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that just from the standpoint of, I mean, it's an existing building, it's being used. We really don't want to get to a point where it's like the middle school, right? Where the old middle school has been sitting so long, you can't really do anything with it. So probably best to put the money in it now and keep the momentum going, right? Before it sits too long and collects a bunch of mold and stuff. So. Right, it's perfect. Yeah. I almost wonder, so that's 22,000 square foot building, right, Mr. Miller? Roughly. I mean, I just ran the numbers. It looks like.
quote me on that, Bryce, you know.
Do not remember the square footage of the building off the top of my
I
head.
just seem to remember Vic saying that in years past when we were trying to get a new courthouse, and it just comes out to $25 a square foot if you divide 22,000 by 550,000 or vice versa, rather. So I'm just thinking that might be where it came out as square foot, which ain't bad.
Right, and we're looking at, is there a possibility of, do you move, treasurer, commissioner of revenue, give them more space, do you move community development, give them more space? So there's a lot of options. We really do have a lot of options with that, and that's how we've approached it with Mr. Bell, who's with Mosley, is to have him develop somewhat of a generic space that will accommodate offices for whoever goes in there. And we're looking at it like another multi-purpose room where you could have some meeting space as well. This one's overused.
Any more discussion on that one?
Good.
Okay.
All right. The second project I am bringing to you all is the King George Middle School Turn Lane project. The expansion of King George Middle School is complete. Associated with the project is construction of a turn lane off Dahlgren Road into the school as required by VDOT as part of the project approval. The county received a 50% revenue sharing grant, matching grant from VDOT to fund the first phase of the turn lane project. And the county will be awarded another revenue sharing grant, provided 50% funding for the second phase which consists of pavement widening on the west side of Darwin Road. This project will improve safety of the ingress and egress to the school with vehicle traffic as well as pedestrian traffic. And that is in the amount of $500,000.
You said pedestrian traffic, is there gonna be a signalized crosswalk?
In current VDOT standards, you have to bring the there are signals. They're currently correct. Yeah, they're currently there, but current VDOT standards do require them to be put in any new signalized intersection with such use.
To kind of to rehash the dollars and cents, is it a $500,000 cost to the county because you were speaking about two different grant opportunities? Is it that the total of the project will be $1 million, but the requirement for the county is 500,000?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
And it's a VDOT requirement.
That is for us to fund half of it. I'm sorry, what's
The turn lane itself, yeah, the turn lane itself was a VDOT requirement.
I believe so. Yes.
Discussion on that one? Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Steve Basham, Deputy Chief of Emergency Services.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. Fire Rescue has 3 projects. Few of them are ongoing projects. The ambulance replacement program, we've adjusted the rates for the cost of new ambulances. And the fire rescue facilities for the Company 2 station in Dyron for the upcoming year, and then a Company 4 station in the Shiloh District in FY 27-28. And to go along with the Company 4 station was for aerial apparatus truck. Reason proposed 2 years before the station construction is because of the time it takes to build a fire truck nowadays. This is our replacement program for all of our apparatus. You can kind of just see a quick breakdown how it all lays out. We have 7 ambulances. We replace one every year. So an ambulance is getting replaced every 7 years. We average by the time it's up for replacement around 130,000 miles on it. Here's the chart of the county. It's showing all of our calls for last year. We ran 4,290 calls. You see the 3 different color areas. That's where the 3 current stations are. And the same map with the proposed Company 4 would cut 843 calls away from the amount that Company 1 currently runs. This is our current Company 2 facility. As you can see, it's kind of landlocked with the marsh right there beside it. Just a couple pictures of that. It's just a 3-bay station, and we have 6 people that work there 24/7. And you see it's not a whole lot of room. Kind of tight for the apparatus. And we also, Company 2 shares with the old Diamond Rescue Squad station out there, the garage area where we house our additional equipment at. So depending on the call, they get a brush fire, they got to leave that Company 2 station and run out here to the garage right down the road to get the brush truck, or if they need an additional ambulance or something like that. So the proposal for the new station is, to have a new state-of-the-art building, with everything in one location, and a lot better facilities than we currently operate out of. Then the ladder truck is a couple pictures of some of the different type of aerial apparatus there are. We haven't really decided which type we're going to go with. Like that's a platform truck, and then you have just a standard stick. And there's some of the uses of a aerial apparatus. Any questions?
Sir.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have Chris Dines, Director of IT.
I think we've heard enough. Next.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of our planning commission. So here are my 3 projects. You're familiar with the computer replacement program. Every 5 years, we want to refresh everyone's desktop so that they can be up to speed with the latest Windows versions, updates, software and security that everyone needs to maintain and that we're responsible for. So for this year, coming up 70,000 for the next, and then it goes down a little lower the years throughout through 27, 28. And that just depends on, we try to do departments at a time for the most part and see how many we can get through. We have an increase in staff, so we've had influx of the need of more physical equipment for them to work. So the price kind of goes up and down, but it pretty much stays around the same. Unless there's a major department like we had with fire rescue last year. Now, the next item will be for the new courthouse. And we have money budgeted for them through the construction of the courthouse, of course, but I wanted to add a little more just in case, not knowing the availability of some things and the increased costs from the whole pandemic and the state of the economy. So I put in some extra placeholders for those amounts because we're coming up on a renewal for our equipment. So they have normally a maintenance agreement that you update. But when the end of life of a particular network project and a security appliance or a network switch runs out of service, you don't want to do just the maintenance upgrade. You want to replace those so you get the latest and greatest software and cloud software that comes with those. So for the smaller things like cameras and wireless access points, they will give you the camera for free, and you just have to pay the maintenance on that as if you still had the old device. So those, since they're so much cheaper, it's more meaningful for them to just go after the high dollar items, which are security appliances and network switching. So that's what I have there for that when they move in, just in case, because we're trying to keep our costs down as much as we can, but we never know what might happen in the market and things might go up by the time that courthouse is actually built. And then I have extended over to the next year that hopefully we won't have too much more that we'll need. So we probably won't need that, but I just have it there as a placeholder just in case. And I'll come back to you next year, and if things clear up as far as that goes and we know we're on a good path, then I'll just get rid of that. And the last item was something that we were thinking about all the way back before COVID, like in 2019, 2020. that we were gonna recable this building and our Parks and Recs building. They have really old infrastructure there. And we wanted to build out a better network room for them, because right now it's like a closet, very cramped, it's very warm, there's no air circulating, things like that. So we wanted to look into doing that. And I was kind of going off of our original estimates for that, and I kind of raised the price for that. I haven't had someone actually come out and give an exact estimate, because for the longest time the people wouldn't even come out. But of course now everything's changed a little bit, so they'll actually come out to your office and do those kinds of assessments. So I put in a placeholder for the combined of those two for $160,000, and it may not be feasible for this next year. I might have to push that off. It depends on all the things we have. We have a lot of things going on in this building, and it will cause a lot of outside work and probably a little hindrance to some of our workers that might work later than normal hours. So we have to try to schedule that to get that done. But I put in for 160 there, and for that 1 year, 330, and for the following year, you see 120,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, and of course there'll probably be something that might need to be added through. So again, I'll bring that back to you when the time comes. And that's all I had. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. I'm sorry? No, but I've been trying to get our finance department to procure a BMW MI60 SUV to hold all of the equipment that we have to haul around. But they won't let me do that, so here we are.
Well done.
We're still driving our 2007 Ford, what is it? Explorer.
So for the building recabling, you replacing copper with copper, you upgrading to fiber and translators. I mean, are we going high tech here? Or are we going to kind of stay same?
We have fiber, and we have the walls and ceilings are full of old cable from a long time ago. So the original part of this was because there was a leak in that room back there, which is the DMARC for all the incoming internet service, and kind of like the hub for our whole connectivity within the building. But Mike and his staff fixed it. You've seen all the rain and all the snow that we've had the last 2.5, 3 years. Well, there's not a drop of water in there anymore. They fixed it. But at that time, we wanted to move that DMARC upstairs into the server room, right next to where Donna works in the finance office, in that server room there. It's more climate controlled than that building, than that room is, and we just thought that it would be better to be above the fray of having the leaks that were coming in through the pitch in the roof there over the restrooms. So that's been solved, but we still would like to do that for our posterity, and we think that that's the best thing to do, to have that away from any potential harm. But it's a big job. The Parks and Rec won't be as bad, but this one will be a big job.
Well, that's what I was hoping to hear. That we were going to transition to fiber where we had copper.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the old stuff makes sense.
Mhm.
And of course, moving the server to we have less opportunity for flooding.
Right.
What if you don't spend 100,000 on the courthouse?
Oh, then it goes back
Towards
to
the BMW?
no.
Oh.
Although I would like it to. No, it would go back to Ms. Hahn would say, we'll take that and put that into the kitty for the rest of the county. That's what they do. They don't waste any money here.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Boyd, Superintendent of King George County Schools.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening, Chairman Moss, members of the Planning Commission. I understand that the number of requests the school division has put me in the 8th spot here for this evening, so I'm going to rethink that next year. I did provide. Oh, sorry. There we go. And it begins with our annual request for the school bus refresh. That's item number 2. So each year the school division aims to replace 5 or 6 school buses with the replacing the buses with the highest mileage and the greatest history of repair to ensure that our bus fleet remains reliable, safe, and efficient. So we would ask again for this year to replace 5 or 6 buses. And again, the cost of buses are going up, so we would be requesting $650,000 for that project. Project 3 is the King George High School turf athletic field. The field is just over 60,000 square feet, and the turf of King George High School Stadium is over 10 years old, and I've heard from many folks in the community that that was about the timeline predicted on the front end of that project. In the fall, we had Field Turf come out. They sent a field care team to the site to survey and make recommendations for the care and the estimated longevity of the field. And the Field Turf suggested field care team. We'll say that 5 times. Suggested that we replace the turf in another 2 to 3 years. So again, this is not an urgent request, but this is one that's necessary in the next 2 or 3 years. The next project is scoreboards for the baseball and softball fields at the middle school. These scoreboards were purchased through the building renovation project. So when we renovated the middle school, these scoreboards were purchased. However, it was not part of the renovation project to include the installation of these scoreboards. So the scoreboards are currently being stored at the middle school. However, the cost associated with pouring the footers, securing the beams and joists, and running the electricity to the site is estimated at $52,000. The next project there is at Potomac Elementary School. If you've ever been to Potomac Elementary School gymnasium and slid on that floor in there, you'll get up looking like a Smurf. So it's like a blue type of material. So anytime there's any type of friction on that floor there, little pieces of blue flakes collect on students' clothing or rub off onto the floor. So that Potomac Elementary School gymnasium floor was originally constructed of a material that has reached the end of its life. And again, the estimated cost for that project is $110,285. And then again, an annual request for parking lot and driveways for the school properties, repairing and repaving as needed. And those specific locations this year are the school board office, the preschool next to the school board office, Potomac Elementary School, and King George Elementary. And those range in different project types, from repaving, striping and sealing, and it also says here the front office of the Potomac Elementary School, repaving, sealing, and striping as well. And then finally, before I circle back to the preschool, is the flooring at Potomac Elementary School, Sealston Elementary School, and King George High School is showing signs of wear and tear. Sealston Elementary School has 24 classrooms that need tile. The estimated cost for each room to tile is $22,500. King George Elementary School has 9 classrooms that need tile, again $2,500 per classroom. And Potomac Elementary School has 6 areas that also need tile: library, teacher's lounge, entrance, etc., at approximately a value of $60,000. I can pause there for any questions on those relatively smaller ticket items before I circle back to the larger explanation of the preschool study. That would be beneficial.
Just real quick, how many buses would you be looking at $650?
Between 5 and 6. The prices go up almost daily in speaking with Ms. Picarello at our transportation department.
Thank
you. Did we do the same with the buses that we did with the ambulances during COVID? We skipped a year with providing that budget?
I think, yeah, we did. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't buying buses at the time, but yeah.
So that's still a little catch up.
It does, a little catch up to do and put some of our older buses with higher mileage still on the roads. I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of 60 some total, I want to say. But I don't have that in front of me. I can certainly get it back to you. And I can move on to the preschool if you guys would prefer, unless there's any other questions.
Any more discussion? All right, preschool, please.
Okay, if you take a look at your other document, but before you do so, in the first document, just going through some of that. Last year, I brought this request to you for the need, obviously, for a preschool replacement in King George County. I showed you a lot of pictures last year about the condition of that facility, which is well beyond its lifetime. And what was approved through this process, through the CIP process, was to do a feasibility study on a preschool facility moving forward. So that's what I'm coming to you here this evening with, is the feasibility study. So if you take a look at that other document that I provided this evening, that document is broken down into 4 sections. And again, this preschool feasibility study was done by Mosley Architects. And what they did, I thought they did a pretty thorough job of meeting with the existing staff and school leadership, touring the existing facility, taking a look at the current programming needs of the preschool. When I talk about programming needs, I'm talking about the number of classrooms, administrative spaces, classes for special education, common spaces within that building. And then they took those numbers and compared those against the state average or state suggested classroom sizes to provide a updated programmatic needs, which I'll go through here in a minute. But they did a pretty thorough job of sitting down with us and developing an architectural plan for the new preschool. So again, that section 1 introduction talks about the methodology. If you go to tab 2, again, this is the existing conditions of the preschool. This is what I presented to you last year. I won't go into great detail there. A lot of that facility is, as I mentioned before, well beyond its usable condition. So if you go down to tab 3 or section 3 of the document, you'll see the programming section. And within the programming section, you'll see after Mosley's initial tour and conversations with school staff and school leadership, what they did was take the number of classrooms that would be needed in that new facility and then took the average square footage space that the state suggests for locations of that size, classrooms, gymnasium, multipurpose rooms. And based on crunching those numbers, the number of classrooms needed, the number of spaces needed by the square footage, they came up with a total gross area of 45,293 square feet. And that, again, is in that programming section. If you continue to scroll down, they've then provided us in section 4 some options for the preschool facility. As far as the actual physical structure, you can see there were 3 options presented from Mosley. Option 1 puts all of the classroom sections on one end of the building, the common spaces on the other end of the building, on the left-hand side of the building. Option 2 takes almost an opposite approach, puts all of the administrative and multi-purpose areas more towards the right side of the building and spreading the classrooms throughout. And then option 3, which was the one more preferred by school staff in the preschool building, is an L-shaped building. And you can see with that building, you've got classroom wings on both ends of the facility. And then in the middle, you have all of your common spaces that which would be shared, your gymnasium, your multi-purpose room where you would have your dining, your administration wing, your art classroom, and so on. Scrolling down, you then take a look at what they did in terms of assessing the topography. Right now, Mosley and everyone that was part of this project is considering the property, the 47-acre parcel where the former middle school sits, as a potential site for this project. And what they took a look at was the wetland delineation of that property and also the topography of that property, and found that there's really not a whole lot of buildable space given the wetlands in that 47-acre parcel of property and the relative topography. There's two kind of flat areas back there, and I'll go through those two locations as we work our way through the report. So the option number one is, you can see if you scroll down or turn through the plan, you'll see a topography map and you'll see a yellow designation. That's the L-shaped preschool right on top of the existing middle school. That was option one. You continue to scroll down, you can see option two is a fourth elementary school, which was loosely considered in this feasibility project. I should mention that right now, we have 3 elementary schools in the division. Potomac Elementary School is just about at capacity. Honestly, it's about 1 student away from capacity. Sealston Elementary School currently is over capacity, and King George Elementary School is about 100 seats below capacity right now. So given those numbers, we're quickly approaching, with the growth of the community, the need for a 4th elementary school. So in talking through this project with some of our county officials and Mosley's Architecture, we want to seriously consider the need for a 4th elementary school while we're considering this need for the preschool. So again, this project was the feasibility study for the preschool. So you can see that option in option number 2 there, of an elementary school on the existing footprint of the old middle school, and then a service road that goes down on the right-hand side of the new elementary school to the other flat piece of property there where that L-shaped preschool would be. And then if you scroll down further, you can see the total costs of those different options. Again, you see option 1, which is the new preschool where the decommissioned middle school is currently located. That option came in at just north of $26 million. And then option 2 is a new preschool at the back of the property in hopes of making room or plans for a 4th elementary school. And that option came in at $27.7 million. And that's the end of the report, and I can stop there for any questions.
Which option were they leaning to?
Leaning towards option 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that option 2, to be more specific, is that L-shaped. So it's a little confusing because the initial physical structure of the building was options 1, 2, and 3. So that L-shaped building was that was option 3. And then when you look at the land or where the preschool would be placed, there were 2 options there. Option 1 was on the existing middle school site. Option 2 was towards the back of that 47-acre property. So it's option 3 for the building and option 2 for the location of the building. That helps. That's
And this was built for current capacity.
Yes, sir.
Was there any talk? So what? Looking at it, I don't know if you made a possible expansion to make it like a U-shaped building, but don't build the last piece. I don't know if that's an option in this, but talking to them if they can design it so future needs, so we're not going to get smaller.
Yeah, it's my understanding that both this preschool project and the potential 4th elementary school has the ability to expand into additional academic wings and such if that was the route that the commission and board of supervisors would choose.
Right, like maybe have them draw out where you, so the connections and everything are there, so when you do it, it's set up for it.
Yes, sir.
Is this the best location for
It's certainly it's a very nice location as far as being pretty central to the county. So we have 1 preschool in the division which would serve all students in the county. So as far as that's concerned, it would be very desirable. Can you be more specific? Do I think that that's a good location as far as population density? I think if it's considered, I know that intersection right now, we've talked a little bit about the turn into the middle school right now. That intersection is a busy intersection, specifically when school's in session. If I think what's desirable about it is that it can create more of a campus style environment for the school division, where the high school, middle school, preschool, and potentially fourth elementary school, school board office, all could be on the same site. So there could be the ability for a lot of the school personnel and school traffic to travel within that campus. So that could lessen some of a lot of that traffic right now is school traffic. So that could help potentially.
The historical nature of the building, notice the study did not address the condition. Tearing it down, the right thing to do.
As far as the existing preschool,
I can see it's unsuitable. Little social building, restaurant.
to be honest with you, in my time here, and again, I don't want to speak for anybody, and maybe through this process somebody will come forward, but in my time here, no one has come to me with a strong desire to keep that building alive and well. Well, that sounds good. And again, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with that. I do know that a lot of the technology, the fire system, a lot of the building is outdated. Yeah. I don't know that it has.
From a location standpoint, though, where the current preschool is at the Millbank facility, that's a perfect location. I mean, if we thought about instead of doing it where the old middle school is, we thought about raising that existing preschool and putting new structure there.
So leveling the existing middle preschool and putting the new structure there. We didn't look at it through this plan. That's certainly an option. I mean, we were taking guidance from the county and the Board of Supervisors, and we do know that 47-acre piece of property there is one that was strongly considered during the planning process, but I think that's certainly a viable option as well.
It just seems like centrally located in the county. 'Cause we got no shortage of old buildings sitting around. I mean,
yeah.
Was
two old school buildings, the old middle school and the old King George Elementary School, that are practically worthless.
I know they're on prime pieces of real estate.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you tore one down, I mean, you're currently using the old King George Elementary School for preschool. I guess if you left them there, you could tear down the middle school and then just move over into it when it was completed. If you tear down the King George Elementary, the old King George Elementary, you got to find some place to put them.
Yeah, I mean,
You can't put them into the middle school.
That's the astonishing thing.
The property.
Please, there's more buildable land on the old middle school site. A lot more construction on it than there are on this site, which is really impaired by topography. The 206, 3.
So the old middle school has been empty for some time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's a testament in itself, right? We're still using the old elementary school on the Millbank side where the loop is by St. Anthony's Loop. That was built in what, 1920 something?
Yeah,
100-year-old building.
30 something. There's a cornerstone that has Roosevelt's name on it.
There's a WPA plaque, which
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a plaque in there that has Roosevelt's name.
beautiful building.
Comp plan, that's in the comp plan. We got to do.
Yeah, but I mean, we've wrung that thing out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you figure, so that building, I'm just saying, that building's got at least 40 years on the middle school building, and the middle school building's been empty forever. So, I mean, we've just got a lot of old buildings we should tear down and start fresh with.
Also, as a parent with kids both in the middle school and high school, traffic is, as you know, is horrendous there at pickup times. Putting another school right on Doggin Road, just a little further down Doggin Road. Have you studied the impact of that to the busing and pickup situation and all of that?
I don't know that we have outside of this project. Again, hopefully, with just specifically with the school division has control over. If we can look at some type of inner bus loop that would travel. Part of the problem right now is that the buses from the high school go over to the middle school on Route 3. So having some type of inner property bus loop travel would be beneficial.
I would think so. That's a worthy endeavor. Yes, Pete.
I have a question. In your selection of your design, I didn't see anything that made mention of safety in today's environment and world. With all that's going on, was that even considered or talked about in that?
This is just a feasibility study. When we would get a little deeper into the actual development of the building specifically, that would have a lot to do with access systems, camera systems, all of the things that we currently have in our existing schools as far as safety is concerned. But good question.
Do you have a projection in mind as for how many years, roughly, or a range at least, as these new schools should handle the capacity of the county's growth?
We're growing at a pretty quick rate, and as I said, I think we've got, we're as far as the schools are concerned, we're at about 1, 2, 3, 5%, somewhere in that ballpark a year. But as you know, with the growth of this community right now, I'm originally from Northern Virginia. See a whole lot of similarities. So if you continue to rely on that 3, 4, 5% growth, it doesn't happen like that. It happens exponentially. So what'll happen is, as we all talk this evening about all of the things that are coming into our community, it'll happen quicker than we think it will.
In your planning, are you saying, I want to accommodate the next 15 to 20 years, or is it 20 to 30 years? Or what is your goal in trying to accommodate?
As far as what we're building for, or when we need those facilities by?
What you're building for.
So again, the high school was built in 2008, to give you an example. Opened its doors in 2009. It was a 1,500 school facility at the time. It's the high school is now over 1,500. So to give you an idea, it's happening pretty quickly. So we certainly need to start thinking. And part of the as I'm newly acquiring these roles and responsibilities in this job, one of our main focuses is taking our capital improvement plan within the school division and stretching it out to 15, 20 years and seeing what that looks like. Again, there's a lot of variables that come into play, but certainly looking at how our growth is really expanded over just the last couple of years is certainly playing heavily into those decisions.
Do you know where the high school was at 2008 population?
No, I know when I came on board 8 years ago as the high school principal, the population was 1,234 because of the uniqueness of the number. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're up over 1,500, and that's been 8 years.
Okay. The other comment I had was on cost of the projects. I think expansion in the front would be easier for the preschool. That section's a lot more workable as far as expansion and parking and all that, rather than that back facility. The other thing as far as cost, we're going to have to do something with the school board building, right? So you're going to have to tear that down. So that's going to be an extra. So if you put the preschool up front and then tore down the school board building, you're probably going to save some money because as you tear that down, you're preparing the site for a new building. If you put the elementary school there. Otherwise, you have an empty building sitting over there and everybody's going to go, do you want to pay all the money to get rid of it? We're going to be sitting with another old building.
I just want to make a comment that really like seeing the planning that's gone into it. We can argue about whether we like this option or that option and all that kind of stuff, but for years, I've watched the school board coming in here with nothing but a wish list. You know, at least I'm hearing things now that say you're really looking at the buildings and determining whether they're worth keeping, you know, what your numbers are. I'd love to see your numbers someday, but you know, your student current counts and your projections. But you know, kudos on the planning that's gone into this. I truly appreciate that. I think if we're going to invest money anywhere, one of the biggest returns on that investment for the county is for the preschool and the kids that are coming up. I mean, we get them a good start. They should do well in school. King George has got a good reputation for a rural school as having good education coming out of it, you know. So, I mean, I'm all for getting rid of the old facility where you're currently housing them and finding a location to build a new facility for them. Whether it's this site or some other site, I'll leave to the competent people in the county to make that decision. Congratulations, I like the work.
Any more discussion? Dr. Boyd, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right, last but certainly not least, with 11 requests, Chris
No,
Clark.
There's only
Director
10.
of
There's
Parks
only
and
10. If you look at
Recreation.
my list, there is no number 10 on it. I only have 10 requests. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. If it's a T-ball game, the last batter's up. I'm going to hit the home run and everything's going to score. Tonight, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to bring you our capital improvement plans for FY24 through 28. Chris, you got me. Okay. All right. So the Department of Parks and Recreation has been blessed over the past 4 years to receive funding for a number of capital improvements funded both through the traditional CIP process and through federal government programs like the CARES Act and ARPA. To date, we have completed the FY21 CARES Act improvements, a number of the FY22 CIP safety and security upgrades, and acquired all of the equipment from last year's capital equipment upgrades that you all recommended. The Sodell Brooks Junior Park Picnic Shelter is awaiting its certificate of occupancy. The inspection's tomorrow. And the tennis center reconstruction will be finished in the coming months. It's about 90% complete at this point. The lighting projects and the restrooms for Sodell Brooks Junior Park will go to bid later this year. Since the CIP process has been closely aligned with the budget process this year, our development timeline was a little crunched. So we still use last year's needs analysis. We do those every 5 years. And so we used that and updated our rankings. And then in December 2022, the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, past Chairwoman Chris Buck is here tonight. They approved our recommendations that they're meeting that month. The projects I will present to you tonight address 8 of the top 10 facility needs from the needs assessment last year, as well as some of the goals of the tourism strategic plan. Our first project is implementation of the Trailway Study. It will have impacts across the county. Next week, the Board of Supervisors is anticipated to approve the King George Courthouse Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, which GWRC has developed for us, which lays out specific strategies for multimodal improvements from Inaugural Drive to the YMCA. Within that plan, there are 4 distinct phases that we intend to seek VDOT funding for individually, and we'll start with the section Madison Drive to the middle school. We're going to apply for a transportation alternatives grant and smart scale grants for those, and both of those require matching funds. So it's our request to set aside $250,000 a year for the next 5 years so that we have that money available. So not that I need you to give it to me this year, but we want to make sure we have it so that when, as a necessary thing now, so that when we do win a grant, all of a sudden we're not urgent and coming and saying, hey, we need this money and where are we going to get it? Am I hitting them? It doesn't like me. Now we're going too fast. All right. For Sealston Sports Complex, we again seek funding for a playground to be added near the picnic shelter. Playgrounds were our second highest need in the needs assessment last year, and this is our only major park without playground. This is a necessary project for $125,000, including the equipment and the construction. Staff is prepared to apply for matching grant opportunities through playground manufacturers in order to decrease the burden on the county. And they come up regularly. The playground replacement at Sealston is just necessary, but playground replacement for Barnesfield Park is as urgent as I can say, fine enough as a park and rec person. Installed in the early 2000s, the playground at Barnesfield has exceeded its useful life of 15 to 20 years. And over the last couple of years, we've put $11,000 into repairs. In order to protect our children that play and decrease the county's potential liability, we would like to replace this playground for the same $125,000, including equipment and construction. And we would, as with Sealston, be willing to seek grant funding to match. The big one. The new Harry Nice Thomas Mack Middleton US 301 bridge is complete, and the public is eagerly awaiting the reopening of Wayside Park and the possible development of the additional lands that the county acquired through that process. It's Parks and Recreation urgent that we begin the planning process this fiscal year by contracting with a planning and design firm so that renovations and new amenities can be started as soon as possible. Parks and Recreation Department and the Advisory Committee both believe that we need a solid big picture plan for all 330 plus acres at the same time. This is a multi-year request with just $100,000 for this fiscal year. We are also going to be working with the Board of Supervisors at trying to get some additional funding sooner rather than later, as the current access road to Wayside, and you can see it here on this aerial shot that Fire Rescue took for me. There really is no parking at this time. So we're going to need to add parking there in the yellow rectangle, which is right there at the waterfront where most people used to park. And then most likely up at the access road, going back towards the AT&T's building with angle parking. And that looks like I think we can get 35 to 40 spots in those two areas if we use them to the best of their ability, including ADA parking. I'm just going to turn it off and yeah. As King George County continues to grow in population, our need for a centralized recreation center grows as well. Currently, we utilize 8 different facilities for indoor programs. During the winter, we may have up to 6 of these in operation at the same time, which is a supervision challenge. It is our desire to begin the strategic planning process and design of a rec center in FY27 and construction in FY28. The construction figure of $10 million is still an estimated placeholder. We also work very closely with the school system as they develop new facilities, as they are our homes, and we are working on a new agreement with them, a use agreement that will emphasize the fact that when we build something, we'll talk to them to make sure it works for if there's any needs they have, and when they build something, they'll talk to us so that we're able to fully utilize all the facilities that we have available, because we will still most likely need to use elementary schools for activities beyond having a rec center. Another new facility, the Furry Friends didn't make the top 10 in 2022 in the needs assessment, but the advisory committee and staff all recognize that there is a need for an off-leash dog park in King George County. Citizens either drive to Colonial Beach or Stafford County to run their dogs off leash, or they violate our park rules and run them in our parks. Unfortunately, that violation consistently leads to folks running their dogs in baseball fields and softball fields, and the dogs leave presents in Little League and travel baseball and softball teams, find those presents and have to remove them before they can practice and play. This is an FY25 recommendation. Constructing field lights on Barnesfields B and C will enhance our ability to hold sports tourism events like softball and baseball tournaments. We have pushed this back to FY26 this year to hopefully bring that in with the planning process for all of the properties. Sports tourism opportunities also exist, obviously, at Sealston. In FY26, we'd like to add the lights for fields 2 and 3, which don't have them, which was estimated at $700,000. Another fiscal year 26 need would be the repaving of Sudell Brooks Junior Park. At that time, it's anticipated that the decommissioning of the wastewater treatment plant will be complete, and those heavy trucks will no longer be needing to access it. So we'll be able to update that surface, and we're anticipating, at least at this time, it's for $750,000. Finally, I have honestly the most urgent request I've ever brought to you all. The access road into Sealston Sports Complex was designed strictly for park access with 2 inches of asphalt. Since the pandemic, this roadway has become a staging area each day for parents dropping off and picking up at Sealston Elementary School, and is seeing possibly as high as 300 trips a day. Almost the entire roadway has alligator cracks and these two huge potholes, and if you've come to the complex, you have either driven through them or around them. We have tried cold patch, and we are losing. So we have that in for this year for $150,000 to repair with a 5-inch surface of asphalt. And then finally, I just want to thank you all for all your support through the years. This is a shot of this picnic shelter, and the community is super excited about being open. We've been getting calls, multiple calls a day about renting that shelter, and we just really appreciate your all support. In closing, while education and public safety often are seen as the essentials of community, Parks and Recreation stands closely behind as part of what makes a community great. The National Recreation and Parks Association reported in 2021 that both 4 and 5 U.S. adults indicate access to high-quality parks and recreation is an important factor when choosing a place to live, end quote. Through our capital improvement plan, we hope to continue to meet and exceed those expectations of our residents.
Any discussion?
I sprinted around those bases.
Yeah, thank you for that presentation. Seems like the planning and thought has really got into this. I'd like to know more, maybe economic development could tell us about revenue opportunities. Sports complex. Not looking at 700K outlay. Yes or no return. Economic data, which probably lives over.
Yeah, and those numbers, like if you research sports tourism, and obviously it's a $1 billion industry or whatever in the country at the time. That's totally made up number out of my head, but it's a huge number. Certain localities will present that they'll present the total economic impact, primary, secondary, and tertiary dollars sometimes, and so you see this huge inflated number. For us, we rent the fields for a tournament for $125 or $150 a day each field. So we're not getting rich off it. It's the economic impact of hopefully putting heads in beds and having people eat and be here. And that's why last year, in previous years, the Barnesfield lights had been in front of the Sealston lights because of the location in Dahlgren where our hotels and our restaurants are. To have, with a number of years ago before I got here, we hosted a Little League state tournament, softball, I believe it was, and they had to move it from Barnesfield to Sealston. And when they moved it to Sealston, everybody stayed in Fredericksburg and Stafford and Spotsy. And so we didn't see that economic impact from the event. Last year, 2 years ago, we had one of the smaller state tournaments, the 9 to 11-year-olds, and we held that at Barnesfield. And a couple of the teams stayed here. It was obviously a challenge between the base and the bridge construction that the number of rooms that were available during the week was a challenge. The inventory wasn't there, but they did eat here in between games.
I appreciate the overall strategic, coordinated vision. I think that's how we should be doing things here forward. I really appreciate that.
That's my goal. I want to give you the most full picture of the things that, not just I believe, but our committee, and we continue to survey the public to say, what do we need? Actually, it was funny. I posted the presentation on Facebook today, and the first 2 comments locked into the pools, which aren't in here.
I want to echoing Mr. Kendrick's comments too about kind of the overall thoughtfulness of all the presentations that came through tonight. I know a lot of folks left, and I don't blame them, but yeah, I think this is one of the better years that we've seen, and it's also it's rewarding to see over the years where things move off, like the radio system for the police department and stuff, and the picnic shelter and things of that nature. So yeah, excellent work by everybody. Just overall kind of bumper sticker on things there. So that's all I have to say.
Public comment, CIP. We'll open the floor for public comment. Mr. Dines, anybody online?
So, Mr. Chairman.
We will now close public comment, CIP. And with that, any old business? New business?
I'd like to propose a topic for new business, and that is affordable housing.
Man, that is a rabbit hole. I don't know how weird. That is a rabbit hole.
I dread doing it.
And I think it's a question, we're trying to answer a question that nobody can really formulate how to ask. Like, what is it? How do you get your arms around it? Inflation's
What
crazy.
number do you put on it?
There are resources, and my concerns are twofold. One is the transient population at the base, the Dahlgren base. They are woefully underserved, not living in the county. Short-term housing and affordable housing associated issues, and they're particular to my district, the Dahlgren district. Broadly a concern.
I'd like to know how many people that really encompasses.
Well, the other thing I would like to see is with the ancillary dwelling changes that we're making, what kind of positive impact that would have on exactly what you're talking about, kind of that short-term stuff. So we might, yeah, we might have taken a pretty big bite out of that issue already with the changes that we're going to have. And then I think maybe we kind of watch how that goes. But otherwise,
I think we need to move faster. Housing people, say no word. How many people are living in Stafford? Wrong.
Well, I think we first need data. I think that's one of this, it's going to be such a circular discussion that it's probably best left for some time other than 9:25. I'm sorry.
So I would propose to get the Virginia housing. There's a group, maybe Mr. Benacati, the Virginia housing. There's a billboard up on Dahlgren Road. Get them to brief what is Virginia's perspective on affordable housing, what resources are available.
Still don't know where. I don't know what we're going to do with it. I mean, it's like we've done this before. Like, what is affordable housing? What is the definition of the dollar figure of affordable housing? What constitutes an affordable house? Is it
Virginia statute?
I get it, but then people, what do you want here that marries up to the nature of the community? Are we serving the members of our community, or are we bringing people in from outside the community? It's a lot of questions that go along with it. We've gone through this several times before, and I just don't want to go into it half-hearted. I want to be able to do it with some sort of fidelity or some sort of direction. And affordable housing in and of itself is just a term. It's a word. It has no direction.
The objective is to have base population. Each of those E3s and E4s get $2,500 a month.
Now, how many are we talking about? How many people?
Talking about 1,000.
Okay.
Okay. They turn over.
Yeah, but that's just one aspect of affordable housing. You have a whole community of people who need affordable housing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think those issues need to be brought too. And in my district, we have population that needs affordable housing. So if it's messing with density, but we let this ordinance cycle go by, will be another.
Well, I hear you, and I don't disagree with you, but we're not the ones building anything.
Right.
So how do we incentivize the contractors, the developers who come into this county to build affordable housing? It's not us providing it. We can't just order it and have it done. The county's not going to build it. I mean, so, and I'll tell you that a lot of those E2s, E3s, E4s you're talking about, this little rural county is not where they want to live. If they're not gonna live on the barracks or in base housing, and base housing is if they've got a family. When they get ready to get out of the barracks, they're looking to go up to Waldorf, Plata, Fredericksburg, because there's more things for them to do in their off-duty time. And I've had a lot of them come through my organization over, when I was working out there. Now, for the young officers and the enlisted who have families, you're right. If they're looking to buy while they're doing a 2 or 3 year tour at Dahlgren, there ain't much out there. But we can't build it. So the question is, and this is where we've struggled in the past, is how do we incentivize builders to do that? Because when they come in here, they're looking at a civilian population on the base who are making good money, and they're wanting to sell them $400,000-$500,000 homes. They're not looking in the $200,000 range, because that's not where they make their profit. So I mean, I hear you, but I concur with the other comments, is that we haven't figured out quite what we can do to incentivize
I
it.
just think like a 2x4 is $3, right? I mean, how many 2x4s you take to build a house? It's going to cost you $100,000 just to get it out of the ground, right? By the time you do site work and stuff. So I think affordable housing is something that I've said this 100 times before. Is like, the further you go east from Spotsylvania, Stafford, King George, Westmoreland on down, housing gets more affordable. So, you know, you just keep looking a little bit further east, and it gets more affordable. Now that trend is increasing, right, with everything else, but you've got right now with inflation, materials are cost prohibitive. It's one of those discussions we could have today, and then next week the price is going to go up again. So I mean, I don't know where we get our arms around. It's a problem. And I go back to Mr. Kendrick. I don't know that it's our place to define that.
Incentives. Allowances for increased density. That's probably the single biggest. I'm suggesting and recommending that we have the people from the experts come in and ask, tell us what we need to know about.
Who are the experts? The developers?
Virginia Housing something.
Incentivizing.
They're whole. They're state entities.
You're talking about as far as incentivizing developers to come in and build.
That's Chris's.
Well, and
that's the only way it gets built.
You went to, I remember I was at Quantum. The private enterprise that ran Baytown. They built not barracks, but family housing with, I can't remember the structure. It worked out well for everybody. There's paid your rent to the private company.
Maybe that's further discussion with the base then.
I think the base is a piece. I think the Virginia Housing Authority, the resources available to us, why they exist. Chris is right. We don't know what we don't know. But we do know that our kids are moving out of town. We do know that the young 03s, 04s here for 6-8 month school who would want that aren't, or they're living in Stafford. These guys are getting $1,000 a month premium over what our housing are if there wasn't.
You're speaking on people who are here temporarily. You got people who are been here a number of years and can't afford to buy.
Some here for 2-3 years. There are some here for schools as long as 9 months or longer. We have the whole EXO school there. 180 guys, generally with gals, generally with families, rotate through there every 7 months. The flag officer schools, the whole ages.
So a couple of things. One, I agree. The developers are going to build the housing that gets them the most return on their investment. But I don't think it would be a bad thing to listen to a presentation. We could.
In the house presentation, public hearing.
I don't think we need to do public hearing. We just listen to what it is they have to say, and then determine if there's a path in there for us to mold affordable housing, define affordable housing for our community. But it'll be, to me, the definition will be by community. what's affordable in New York? What's in New York City? What's affordable in Western Massachusetts? Because we use the words affordable housing, and affordable is relative.
Average median income.
That's what I'm saying. We can define affordable for our community.
But it's not, I mean, to be allowed, give incentive, particularly density. The cost of the sale price of the unit is got to be, 36% of the average median income of the jurisdiction. You know what that is. You know what that is.
Like I said, I don't think there's any harm in hosting an entity like that to hear what they have to say and take it from there.
Considered affordable housing. Because prices, I mean, if you look 7-8 years ago, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in George, you could buy it for 150 grand. Those houses are 300, 350, and that's the same house. So I don't know how you change that or how you build it. It just isn't there, and I still would like to know what they consider affordable housing now, because
our medium,
I mean, affordable eggs are an issue. I don't know what affordable housing would be.
Like many, what it means.
I don't think these guys are going to Stafford and getting cheaper places.
They're not. There is an inventory, both because of our short-term housing restrictions. Really do need to address. But once these military families come in, they hand off the houses to each other. They buy them from each other. Generations. And so affordable housing is roughly one third of your income. What's our median? Treasurer, do we know?
I believe it's about 96,000 a year.
Yes.
2017, 2021.
Good for us.
So
$1,000 a year, so that's a mortgage of what? 50s?
That's an expensive house.
your numbers, your numbers are skewed.
It would be fine.
Your numbers are skewed because you have, and I know this because I work for the Employment Commission. It's haves and have-nots. The base throws that out of proportion. If you work on the base, that's where you're meeting that median. If you are not, then that's where your lack of affordable housing comes in. So I hear what you're saying, but I think your population that you're looking at is kind of, that's where you're off. I mean, those E1s and E3s, they get allowances for that.
So that's what I'm saying. I think we're doing a lot of discussion on something that we're in agreement on, and that is we have the folks come in, the experts. Let's hear what they have to say. We apply what they have to say to King George and see if there's something there for us.
That addresses the needs of both, all of populations.
Just see what they have to
That
say.
disparity question is a critical. How do you deal with economically disparate geographical regions? I mean, they have methods, for sure.
Are we ready for the director's report?
We are.
Thank you. The director's report is pretty short, nothing new to add. I will report that I officially signed Chick-fil-A's plans this afternoon. I am sure you, like myself, have asked that question by the public quite a bit. We are still waiting on their building plans, but they are ready to break ground whenever they are ready now. So the ball's in their court. I'm sorry.
How long until they open this?
Step number 1, check. Signed plan. We're going to celebrate that for a minute. The next report that I wanted to get back to you is the hospitals are now officially by special exception. That text amendment did pass by the Board of Supervisors. We also have a joint work session this month on April 25th at 6 p.m. Our topics of discussion will be solar, data centers, and noise. So buckle up.
So that's a joint session?
Yeah.
Oops, right.
Yeah. So eat your Wheaties and pack a lunch.
Just like you really, yeah, me too.
And that's all I have, sir.
Dinner will be served. Heavy hors d'oeuvres and cocktails.
This man right here to my right with the tie has the company card.
Yeah.
Our budget.
I assure you don't. Because that I know.
Oh, no.
Any other business? All right, motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second.
All in favor?
Yep. Wrong, Bill. Give us a good.